Howdy, it's Jim Murado, and this is July 2023. It's a very rainy day in Oxford, Mississippi, and we're at Roanoke, the home of William Faulkner. And this is just going to be a short 12-minute video or so. I looked around while we were here, and I'll let you read stuff. Feel free to pause and read some of those signs as we go through here. I'll try to get a good look in each room, and I'll try to make sure we get some info on them as we go through. But I'll talk to you a little bit about my experience in Oxford and visiting Roanoke, which was very cool. To be honest, this wasn't on my radar. This was not while we were in the area. We drove down south to Mississippi, and mostly to enjoy the Natchez Trace Parkway, and then we hope to see some Civil War sites. And while we stayed at the inn at Ole Miss, they mentioned to us that William Faulkner's house was just right down the road, and our trip to town really wouldn't be complete if we did not visit William Faulkner's house. And I love to read. I have a pretty big book collection, and I don't think I've read a William Faulkner book. I'm going to make sure I change that here in the next few weeks. But he just wasn't somebody that I was really familiar with. I mean, I knew the name, and I knew a little bit about him, but not a lot. So I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that. But anyway, we went and we checked out his home, which was very nice. And we were in Oxford, which is a spectacular town, and we got to learn a little bit about him. One thing that I found interesting as we were looking through the house, as somebody who appreciates stamps and postal history, he is the only person who was basically fired as a postmaster to later appear on a U.S. postage stamp. And I think that's pretty neat. He was a postmaster, I believe, right there at the college's post office, Ole Miss's post office. And he was apparently kind of distracted, wasn't exactly focused, and they had to let him go. And I thought that was kind of a cool story. While we were in Oxford, there's the great bookstore, Square Books. I'll put up a separate video about that place, but they have a whole entire William Faulkner section. Yeah, there's the William Faulkner postage stamp, and I believe that's a first day cover over there. A little bit of information about that, a little bit of family tree information. And I did find out that several of his books were turned into movies. I know he actually wrote for one of the movie companies too, so there's several movies out there that he'd worked on. I want to say they were mostly around the 40s. Older movies, but I'll definitely want to check some of those out. One of them in particular, I forget the name, but it was filmed around Oxford. They have a gorgeous square downtown, nice restaurants, great bookstore, and just a lot going on in downtown Oxford. A nice little walk from here. And while we're looking at stuff, let me go ahead. They did give me a nice brochure while we were here, and feel free to keep looking and pausing if you need to. But let me just read the intro to a pamphlet they gave me while we toured the home, to give you a little information about Roanoke. In 1930, William Faulkner purchased what was then known as the Bailey Place, a primitive Greek revival house sitting on 4 acres of hardwood and cedar. Colonel Robert Shegog, an Irish immigrant planter from Tennessee, built the home when he settled in the tiny frontier settlement of Oxford in the 1840s. Faulkner renamed it Roanoke in 1931 after the rowan tree, a symbol of security and peace. The house was unoccupied for 7 years before the Faulkners purchased it in 1930. Soon thereafter, he optioned the surrounding acreage, Bailey Woods, and settled in with his wife Estill and her 2 children from a previous marriage, Malcolm and Victoria. Within a few years, their own daughter, Jill, was born. Roanoke was the family home of the Faulkners until 1962, the year of William Faulkner's death. In 1972, Jill Faulkner Summers sold the house to the University of Mississippi to secure it as a place for people worldwide to learn about her father and his work. Roanoke was William Faulkner's private world, in reality and imagination, and he was fascinated with its history. His writings were inspired by local stories of Indians, runaway slaves, old colonels, and spinsters who gave China painting lessons and are interwoven with his own memories of coming of age in a South torn between traditional ways and modern development. Faulkner's years spent at Roanoke were productive as he set stories and novels to paper, ultimately winning the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1949 and the Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award in 1954 for A Fable. William Faulkner remains one of the most celebrated and studied authors in the world, with conferences, societies, and journals dedicated to his life and work. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a little information just about the home. I will say you can check out the surroundings. It was so rainy this particular day, though. I did go through the back briefly, but none of my video was usable. But I did get some views out the front, including on this kind of upper deck area. Man, he had a great view up there. Oh, and the tour here was highly recommended by literally everybody we talked to. I mean, everybody said you have to go see Roanoke. It was $5 a person to go. If you're a student at the college, it's free. The tours are self-guided, and there's a little walk to get here. It's very short, very enjoyable, probably on a day when it's not raining. It was still very enjoyable while we were here too, though. Again, we're peeking into all the rooms, and I'm not going to tell you about each one. I'll let you read those signs as we go by them. But as you can see, the house is just it's a nice house. Definitely not what I would call a mansion, but a very, very nice house. Don't want to quite use the word humble, but it's not over the top by any means. I did kind of enjoy the stairways and how that was laid out, and just kind of a neat home anyway. There was a very nice lady there who, a young lady that was selling tickets, told us a little bit about the place. And before we leave, she'll open up the kitchen a little more for us to get a better look. And she would show us where the family would write down phone numbers on the wall by the phone. And that this was a little art exhibit of art inspired by the books. And I believe this was all in an old bathroom. And I'll try to tilt the camera so you can see the bathtub, and also a little bit later, kind of a hidden medicine cabinet, I believe. And pretty neat work, pretty neat artwork here too, by the way. Just a tad more on Mississippi. I really didn't realize so many authors. Yeah, there's that bathtub. I didn't realize there were so many authors from Mississippi. I mean, I just did not know. And that's something somebody could really sink their teeth into. I know when we usually take a road trip, I like to find a book about an area. And I used to be more into finding like a fictional work by a local author. And Faulkner would have been perfect for this trip. But yeah, I just didn't. I'm kind of more into reading Civil War history books and true crime and that kind of thing. But yeah, Faulkner would have been perfect to read before this trip. I did see that Shelby Foote is from the area, and I'm very familiar with Shelby Foote, of course. If you're interested in the Civil War, Shelby Foote. So like I said, the bookstore Square Books had a lot of stuff on Faulkner. A great selection of signed books too, by the way. And then while we were here in Mississippi, we drove not quite 2 hours to get to Starkville to go to Mississippi State. And we went to their campus, so we got to cover 2 pretty significant colleges in Mississippi, and both were wonderful. and just kind of blew our minds how gorgeous the campuses are and how much there is to do at both places. And at Mississippi State, of course, we went and we saw the President Grant Museum, and I'll put up another video about that. Just a great collection, and a lot of Lincoln stuff too. So, and then while we were there, we didn't even, this was something again that we weren't even thinking about. They had a John Grisham room that was just one floor below the President Grant Library, and that was kind of a cool bonus. So yeah, John Grisham, very big in this area too. And at Square Books here in Oxford, I ended up picking up a signed first edition of one of his books, and they had several, which I just thought it would be wrong to leave the area without picking that up. Yeah, and there's that I think that's a hidden medicine cabinet there. Just thought I'd point that out. And of course, we're about to see Faulkner's room. And I did read a small biography of Faulkner that I bought at Square Books. And, again, I didn't know a ton about him, but seemed like the guy knew how to, he liked to drink. Looks like he liked the ladies. He enjoyed smoking his pipe, that kind of thing. So, and then he also wrote books, of course, and that's what people know him for these days. And I did pick out a couple of books of his that I think I'm going to try to maybe hunt down at my local bookstore here in the next few weeks. If you're a fan of Faulkner's, feel free to make a suggestion to me. I know he's there was one of the books I think delved into the Civil War, probably more than that. But yeah, I do read a lot of books on the Civil War, so if there's something you think I might want to read, feel free to let me know. I'd appreciate that. Also, if you're in Oxford, if you're in this area, what all did I miss? I know he's buried not too far from here, but we did not get to go and go to his burial site. But this is definitely an area that I want to get back to. Had a great time. We thought this would be a cool trip down into Mississippi, see some Civil War sites, do some rural driving. But yeah, this whole area, especially Oxford, just really impressed us, and we all agreed we need to get back here. This might be a semi-annual trip or something like that. We just had a great time, and yeah, the people in Oxford, people on campus were all great. I mentioned we stayed at the inn at Ole Miss. That was a wonderful place to stay. Oh yeah, and here's where the family wrote their phone numbers by the telephone. And I know the very kind young lady who sold us our tickets asked everyone to please not write their phone numbers there. I guess somebody at some point may have tried to do that, which is kind of sad. There's an old dial-up phone that I'm sure the family used. I do remember using those myself at one time. A nice look around their kitchen area. I know Faulkner passed away in the early 60s. And there were other houses out here by his house. I wondered if any of the people living there, I wondered if there still might be some of his former neighbors there. Great. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the sound of the rain there at Roanoke. Again, let me know what I missed. If you live in the area or if you're familiar with William Faulkner, let me know what else I need to know or see next time I'm in town.